country like India, you have fake medical degrees, your fake law degrees, your fake graduation certificates. People get into the IAS when someone else actually answers for them. I have dealt with cases dealing with medical students where, and that's really scary, where someone else actually answers the question paper for them, and at some point the switch is done. So this is rampant across all disciplines. Let's first accept that it's not peculiar only to lawyers or to law degrees. It is it is rampant across disciplines, and it's unfortunate that most of these disciplines have regulatory bodies. The Bar Council of India, the Medical Council of India, and the Chartered Accountants, whatever Council of India. Most of these professional degrees are monitored by regulatory bodies. Obviously, the regulatory bodies have failed. That is the only response I can give at a preliminary stage, that the regulatory bodies have not been able to do its job. Because if you had proper regulation, you would be able to weed out the people without degrees from the people with degrees. There's no monitoring about the kind of people who come to courts. There's absolutely no monitoring. It's just an assumption you make, that he's wearing a band and therefore he must be. And actually, it is as simple as that.
Like a person with a lab coat and a stethoscope, you will think that he's a doctor.
I think it's easier in some sense for lawyers. If you, I'm just giving a hypothetical example. You've done your graduation, you have basic language skills, right? And you wear a black coat and you wear a band and you enter a court. A court is not going to verify whether you have the degree or not. You could be a bad lawyer, you could be a good lawyer, you could be making your point well, you may not be able to make your point well, and sometimes you have the basic intelligence to go ahead with your arguments. It's actually more difficult to verify the authenticity, the credibility of the person in front of you than other disciplines, right? So the magisterial court to the sessions court, particularly in criminal cases, deal with, they are courts vested with original jurisdiction. That is, they are courts which will try the offense, right? Where ultimately a person is held innocent or guilty for a crime for which he or she has been charged. So that's why they're called courts of original jurisdiction. Courts of original jurisdiction, as a lawyer who's practiced at all levels, I believe that those are the lawyers who really are the bread and butter lawyers of the system. They are the screw and nut lawyers of the system. They are the lawyers on which the appellate lawyers and the appellate system exist. Without them and without effective representation at the original side, which is the district level side, you really are dealing with the record in the High Court and the Supreme Court. You're not dealing with witnesses per se, you're not dealing with evidentiary hearings per se, you're not dealing with anything which becomes the record of the case, because the High Court and the Supreme Court, only when you're dealing with appeals, you're only dealing with the record, you're not dealing with faces. In such a situation, if you have people who are not qualified to conduct a trial, to conduct effective cross-examination, to raise issues of admissibility, to cite precedents, to move necessary applications at necessary stages, to raise objections with respect to admissibility of electronic evidence, with respect to admissibility of a document, with respect to cross-examination of a forensic expert, etc. This requires years and years. I mean, not just should you be qualified as you should have passed the basic test, but it also requires years and years of practice. If you're a person who's not qualified to take on the responsibility of conducting a trial, right, which is a serious responsibility, you are responsible for diminishing the constitutional rights of the individual for whom you are appearing. Even qualified lawyers sometimes do not represent their clients to the best of their ability. There is always there is always the issue of mediocrity. There's always the issue of not giving the best possible defense to a particular litigant. Unlike in England, for example, where the bench is very strong, and if the bench feels that a lawyer is not giving his or her client the best defense that is available in law to him or her, the bench calls out the lawyer and reports the lawyer. I mean, we're talking about qualified lawyers. We're not talking about this category of lawyers. Reports the lawyer to the Bar Council. And it's a big deal in England. We don't have that parallel system. We don't have the system. The whole issue of malpractice and the whole debate pertaining to legal malpractice is a very underdeveloped scene in India. So, unlike in England, where you are called out by the bench, where the bench says, these defenses are available, very obviously available, and I'm noticing that you're not giving it to your client. He could be the most dreadful client in the world, but that does not matter, right? Here we get caught up with all kinds of other issues. Should the Nirbhaya accused be given legal representation at all? This comes from a body of people whose constitutional right it is to defend people. You have no business, a doctor has no business to say he will not operate upon a person no matter how heinous his crime is. A lawyer has no business saying that I will not appear for person X or person Y because of the crime committed by that person. We are under a constitutional obligation to defend everybody.
What would be the impact of a fake lawyer practicing in courts on the legal system and on litigants also?
I think the impact is going to be immediately felt by the litigant. Because a lawyer without a background, without a training, without a degree, has not gone through, and particularly if you see young lawyers who are graduating out of these law schools today, it's a pleasure dealing with them. Most of them are they're so attuned with the progress of the law, on the subject of research. They're so finely, they've been so finely trained. That is absolutely missing. That experience is absolutely missing from somebody who has not gone through the system. People like us who went through the traditional 3-year system in law faculty, Delhi, despite the ramshackle nature of that building, we were taught by some extraordinary people, Upendra Bakshi, B.B. Pandey, extraordinary people. And I think that was our first understanding of the law. Every day, I am told by courts, we are granting you relief in this case, but Ms. John, can you just expand it further for our understanding, because we want to know how far we can go. Now that's the kind of...
that's the work of the officer of the court.
That's the work of the officer of the court. You are not in a position to give that kind of assistance. So sometimes you get poor judgments because actually the quality of lawyering is so poor. A judge, at the end of it, is as good or as bad as the arguments that both sides present. It's the rare judge who tries to go above those arguments and tries to do his own research and comes up with something which has not even been argued in court. But essentially, in an adversarial system that we have in India, the judge listens to both sides, weighs in the evidence on both sides, weighs in the legal arguments on both sides. And if that assistance is lacking, it affects the quality of the judgment. And that's where people with no formal background will fail the system. There is no system in our country, indeed I don't think there's a system in any country where before you argue a brief, you are supposed to show the judge that this is the degree and you can verify it. That doesn't happen at all. I mean, in fact, it's not practical at all. The verification would take longer than the case that you are supposed to argue. So there is no way in which a judge can physically make that verification. I mean, if somebody is dressed like a lawyer and is appearing as a lawyer, unless there's something extremely suspicious in his conduct or in the manner in which he's appearing or in the manner in which he's presenting his arguments, it's unlikely for a judge to be suspicious, because there is no way in which a judge can physically verify the credentials of the person arguing before him. So that will always remain a problem. Or the person, or the person has been recommended to me by someone I completely trust. I'm hesitant when it comes to signing these forms. I'd love to be generous because young people are coming into the profession, but because I am not sure about the person for whom I'm attesting, I always cross-check, and I think we should do that. I think everybody should do that.